all you Gretas and Shutezcats out there. Welcome to Chapter 9, Environmental Science Notes, Section 3. We're going to look at how environmental issues and food production are connected. So just making your food that you eat, soil erosion, desertification, irrigation, water shortages, air and water pollution, climate change, and loss of biodiversity all are going to limit future food production. So all of these things are happening, like we've talked about. So we need to figure out how to make them less. So very large inputs of energy are needed to grow, store, process, package, transport, refrigerate, and cook plants and animals. In the United States, it takes about 10 units of fossil fuel energy are needed to produce 1 energy of food. Imagine putting $10 into something and you're only getting $1 back. That's really not a good rate of return. And fishing uses 12.5 units of energy to produce 1 unit of energy from seafood. So these aren't the most efficient things in the world. Industrialized food production is very dependent on fossil fuel, which results in a huge net energy loss. So not an efficient way to do your food. Producing food has huge environmental impacts. Industrialized agriculture has allowed farmers to use less land and produce more food. It is both environmentally and economically unsustainable. Industrialized agriculture, in not that long of a time, has removed 70% of fresh water from surface sources and aquifers, has used uses 38% of the world's ice-free land. That's a huge amount that is just going to make food. Emits 25% of all greenhouse gas emissions, just making your food, and produces 60% of all water pollution. So if we got rid of industrialized farming and went back to the smaller organic farming, we could fix a lot of these problems. So topsoil is an important natural resource. Those of you with me last semester when we watched The Biggest Little Farm, the soil was everything. It's a significant natural capital component because it stores water and the nutrients needed by plants. Topsoil renewal is one of Earth's most important ecosystem services. They do recycle as long as they are not removed faster than natural processes can replace them. It takes a good 100 years to make an inch of topsoil. So if you're doing things that are causing erosion, you're losing that topsoil faster than nature can replace it. So here is your soil. You have immature soil, which is pretty much rocks. And a little bit of mosses and lichens. And then the more plants you get, the more dead stuff you get, and they're going to help break down these rocks, and then you'll eventually you have your young soil and then your mature soil. So once you get not only the little tiny pieces of rock, but a lot of composted dead stuff, and honestly poop is in here as well, and you've got all these critters living in and around it, this is your good, healthy, mature soil. This is what you want. But all soil is little pieces of rock, decomposed dead stuff, and poop, which is why you wash your hands after playing in the dirt. Soil erosion is the movement of soil from one place to another by nature and by human activity. Flowing water is the largest cause of soil erosion, and it's going to carry away a lot of soil that is loosened by rainfall. The wind can also loosen and blow away topsoil. This often happens in a lot of flat areas and very dry climates. And then farming, deforestation, and overgrazing will expose the land and cause soil erosion to happen even faster. So just some things to think about there. Harmful effects, the loss of soil fertility through the depletion of plant nutrients in topsoil. Sediment pollution of surface waters can kill fish and clog reservoirs and lakes. So the water gets really cloudy because of all the dirt, and then the plants can't get the sun they need, and the animals get all kind of gunked up. This is even worse if there's pesticide residue, which then goes biomagnification, which we've talked about in the past, up through the food webs. Erosion is also going to release the soil's carbon content, which alters the carbon cycle, adds to atmospheric levels of CO2. So just tilling the land is going to cause more CO2 to go up into the air, which is why a lot of farms, especially the smaller ones, are trying what is called no-till farming, where you don't dig up the soil very much before you plant the next year's crop. Soil pollution, so you got kind of two big ways that this can happen. Some chemicals go up into the atmosphere and then come back down in rain. So industrial plants, power plants, motor vehicles put stuff up and then it rains back down, or eventually will settle down on something else. 19% of China's farmable land is contaminated, especially by toxic chemicals. And then we also have the careless application of pesticides, fertilizers for agriculture can also pollute the soil. And then pollution can also spread to nearby organic farms. So maybe you are doing everything right, but your neighbors aren't. And so then that washes your way. Yeah. Soil desertification. This is the process by which productive potential of topsoil falls by 10% or more due to human activities. So things like overgrazing, deforestation, and excessive plowing can cause desertification, which sounds like we're making more deserts, but we're not. We're making more desert. So extreme cases can actually lead to desert-like conditions, which is bad because you can't grow anything there. Agriculture activities have very serious environmental consequences. Irrigation both boosts and lowers farm productivity. 70% of the water we use goes to irrigating our crops. Irrigation water has lots of salts in it, which can lead to soil salinization. If the soil is too salty, nothing will grow there. So the longer you irrigate your crops, the less healthy you are making your soil. At least 10%, and then the plants don't grow as well. At least 10% of the world's irrigated cropland suffers from salinization. And then you have waterlogging from irrigation where they water too much at one time. It's going to raise the water table, deprive plants of oxygen, and can actually kill your crops. So that's bad. It contributes to air pollution and climate change. So clearing and burning of forests to raise crops or livestock is going to add dust and smoke to the air. Using different chemicals is going to add those chemicals to the air. Ammonia from livestock Ammonia from livestock can lead to acid rain, alter chemistry of terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. And then the agriculture accounts for no more than 25% of human-generated CO2 emissions, release of methane, livestock gas, cow burps, and N2O, which comes out of the poop. So all those things are bad. We also have biodiversity loss during food production. So clearing and burning of forests is going to lead to the loss of natural biodiversity. And I've already mentioned in the Amazon basin, that's mainly for cattle ranching and plantation farming, which is going to, once again, decrease biodiversity. We have many fewer varieties of plant and animal species now used in farming, so even farms themselves are growing less options. Phenomenal harmful environmental effects of industrialized meat production. Cheap meat produced by industrialized agriculture has harmed environmental and health costs not included in pricing, violating full cost pricing factors of sustainability. So things like overgrazing, soil erosion, excessive water and energy use, water pollution, excessive antibiotic use, and animal waste. So lots of bad choices when you are eating meat that has been created through industrialized farming, which is where most, if not all of you, get most, if not all of your meat. So something to think about. We also have aquaculture. So there's different things that are being used for the farmed fish, but that's coming from the wild fish caught in the oceans. So we're still harvesting stuff from the oceans. And then anything contaminated is going to biomagnify up the human food web and deplete those wild fish populations. So still not an ideal thing. Tons of waste. And pesticides and antibiotics. If the fish escape, then you can really mess up the gene pool of the fish. And then it also results in overfishing of those wild caught fisheries. So reducing your fish consumption as well would be a good call. All right, so I would like to leave you with this thought. What is one thing you can personally do to help reduce the negative environmental impacts of food production? And from the couple activities we're going to do this week, that might also help you figure out things that you can do. And we'll continue talking about this next week as well. So before I go, I want to let each and every one of you know that you are good enough, you are smart enough, and people do like you. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good God, do your homework.